welcome to this episode of Morning Coffee with Media. And we are so happy to have such a full house today. And everyone's coming out to see the incredible Tina Borgatta, new editor-in-chief of the Orange Coast magazine. Tina, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I consider Tina kind of like the OG of the OC media. She's kind of iconic because I grew my PR career here. And Tina was always an editor that I aspired to talk to and be around. And it's just fun to see 20 plus years later, we're still working together.
Yeah, because you were still at Soul Technology when we first met.
Yep. Yeah. And you were at Churn Media, OC Metro?
I think I was at OC Metro. I might have been at... Yeah, I think I was at OC Metro.
And then Riviera.
And then
a bunch of other things we'll talk about. And now you're back home.
And now I'm back home at Orange Coast. Yes.
I love it. It's super fun. Tina and I have a mutual friend. So our art director, Luke Hodgson, has been with Reveille almost 10 years. I'm like very honored that somebody has decided to work with me for 10 years. Let me tell you. It's a huge honor, but he's married to Kristen Schott, who you all three used to work at.
We did. We all three met at Churn Media. It was a great time, and Kristen Schott, Hodgson, his wife, they met. They had like this office romance going. It was like The Office, you know? Yeah. and yeah, it was a great time. And then I went to Riviera, and I stole Kristen away from Churn Media, and then we ended up working together for 8 years at Riviera, and we're still good friends.
Yes.
And I love hearing about what Luke is doing and from you and from Kristen.
Yes, I love it too. It's always fun to know that there's always the connections.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into some like details because, you know, I told you the reason why we started doing Morning Coffee with was because I felt that media always took the time to put our stories of the companies that we work for, the clients that we serve, and you always make room for these stories as long as they meet your expectations. But I found over the years that so many people don't know your backstory. And so Morning Coffee with Media has just really been a wonderful opportunity for us to get to know the media behind the media. And so would love to start.
That's nice.
Would love to start with a little bit about like little Tina. Like, what got you interested in journalism, and what are some of those like key moments that kind of shaped the direction of where you are today?
You know, journalism, it's always been my career. Journalism has always been my career. It's what I studied in college, and I've been doing it since I graduated. Actually, before I graduated, I was working at a newspaper. And my mom used to tell this story. I have a very vague recollection of it. But my mom was a news junkie. She'd watch 60 Minutes. She would have the news on all the time. And I heard the word journalist. And I'm like, Mom, what's a journalist? She goes, oh, you don't want to be a journalist. It's way too much work. And it's like, well, what do they do? Well, they write and they, report the news. It's like, oh. And it's ended up being what I studied, and as a kid, I would write little books and give them as Christmas presents.
Oh, I love that.
So I've yet to not author my own book, but maybe that'll come later. But so it's something that I've always wanted to do, and like most journalists, I got my start in newspapers. So I covered hard news for probably the first half of my career. And
where did you do that?
Where?
Yeah.
So my first job before I graduated was at a weekly, it was called the West San Gabriel Valley News Digest. And it was covering East LA, Monterey Park. And it was just a weekly little tabloid. And then from there, after graduation, I went to work in San Bernardino County and spent 5 years covering police, fire, and courts.
You were hard news.
I was hard news. Yeah. And then my life was threatened by a member of the Mexican mafia. And so that was my time to leave San Bernardino County.
Okay, wait, how have I never heard this story?
It's a long story.
Wow.
I'd be happy to share it. But, and then, so I went to work from there. I went to work for a short period of time. I think it was less than a year at a travel magazine. So I went from covering crime in San Bernardino County to covering travel for the travel trade industry. I was working for a magazine called Travel Age West. And while I was in Redlands looking for a new job, I had applied to the Daily Pilot, which is where I met Chris Trella years ago. We worked at the Daily Pilot together. I had applied to that magazine, to that newspaper, I don't know how many times. And it took probably 2 years for them to read my resume.
And that's when the LA Times had the big building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
The good old days of newsprint.
Right.
And a thriving LA Times bureau,
Right.
which we do not have anymore.
And the Daily Pilot was owned by the LA Times, which was owned by Times Mirror.
Okay.
And then the Tribune Company bought Times Mirror, and there was a big reorganization, and then I was reassigned to as a staff writer for the LA Times proper.
Oh.
So I did that for a few years, and then I went back to San Bernardino. So stop me if this is getting long.
No,
and
it's fascinating because
boring.
most of us know you in the magazine glossy world.
Yeah.
So it's actually fun to hear the newsprint.
So then I was then hired to lead the newsroom as the assistant managing editor for the San Bernardino County Sun. So I was back in San Bernardino County, commuting from Orange County. And I was there for 5 months. And my predecessor at Orange Coast Magazine, who I had met, Nancy Cheever, who I had met at the Daily Pilot, because we had worked together. She was the calendar editor for the Daily Pilot. She was moving on, and she called me up and she says, "Hey, I remember you saying that this was your dream job. I'm leaving. Would you want to interview for Orange Coast?" I'm all, "Yes, I would love to." Got the job.
Was Marty there?
No. So Marty had left, and then there was another editor before Nancy, and then it was Nancy, and then it was me. And then when Ruth Coe, the longtime owner publisher, sold Orange Coast to Emmis, which had a whole network of city and regional magazines throughout the country, they were very formulaic and templated. And I just kind of thought, this is probably a good time to move on. And that's when Kim Perazzo, my predecessor at OC Metro, said, "Hey, I'm moving on. I'm looking for somebody. Do you know anybody who might be interested in interviewing?" Well, yeah, I think I might.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know this backstory. Do you guys remember these names, by the way? Like I'm seeing some
Kim
people.
Perazzo, Nancy Cheever, yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I left, and then Emmis had brought in Marty.
Okay.
So then
got it.
Marty took the helm when
Marty
Emmis purchased the.
Marty was one of the great editors of Orange County's history.
He is an amazing storyteller.
Amazing.
And he just sees stories in a different way. You know, he's really a unique talent. And I'm sorry I didn't get to work with him for very much longer, but you know, he was legendary when I was at Orange Coast, and he continues to be a legend. And so then he led the ship at Orange Coast for another 5 years, I think, maybe 5 to 8 years. And then Alan Gibbons came
love
on,
Alan.
who's fantastic. My path had never crossed with hers until she took the helm at Orange Coast, and I was at that time at Riviera. I was working at OC Metro, and again, through connections, I got a call from Chris Gillanella, who was the publisher at Riviera, calling me up saying, "Hey, I don't know if you heard about this, but Kedrick Francis has moved on. We're looking for an editor. Would you be interested in interviewing him?" All, "Yes, I would."
I think we all know Kedrick. Everybody knows Kedrick.
Another
Kedrick
legend.
is the mayor of Orange County next to Steve Term.
Yeah.
Well, Steve Term leads it, right?
Right.
Then there's Kedrick, the deputy mayor of Orange County.
Right, exactly.
I actually remember
Mayor Pro Tem.
Right, Mayor Pro Tem. I do remember this whole transition. I was in my late 20s at the time when all of this was going down.
Yeah. So I made the move to Riviera, worked there for 8 years. Then there was...
Those were the glory days of Riviera when we had a lot of pages of content. if you guys remember, there was a lot of coverage about the lifestyle and the personalities and the people. You brought forward a lot of storytelling of people. I remember.
Yeah. And then I was promoted to a senior group editor position, which soon was reorganized out. So I was between engagements, as they say, and I was at an OC Restaurant Week event. And I I wasn't sure what I was going to do. It had only been a few weeks since I'd, been reorganized out of modern luxury. And I saw Jill Perisic, who was a salesperson at an ad sales executive at OC Metro. She was now working on Sauté magazine, which was a new magazine.
I remember Sauté.
And she's all, would you want to talk to the owner, Keith Savini? I'm all, yeah, sure. So there again, another connection led to another opportunity. And I still work with Keith on some side projects doing custom publishing. And so I have been doing that. I had been doing that for like the last 5 years. And meanwhile, Chris Giulianella, who I'd worked with at Riviera, had gone on to lead Orange Coast Magazine, Pasadena Magazine, and LA Magazine. And he calls me up this year and says, hey, Alan's moved on. Would you be interested in coming? Would you ever consider going back to Orange Coast? And I'm all, I would love to. It was like a full circle moment going home. I was there for the 30th anniversary. I'm there for the 50th. And it's just been really, it's been really a great experience to be back at Orange Coast. I'm really having a wonderful time.
Well, we used to always see you at events. I mean, that's the nature of when you're in the glossy publications. You're always at events doing things. And then we didn't see you for a while. And so it's been nice to have you back on the scene, so to speak, and have you at events and just have a friendly face in the room. And also hear your passion and vision for the future. But I think that the moral of the story of that is that there's just been a lot of changes in the media industry. The amount of conglomerations that are buying up print. I remember in 2006 and 2007 when we started to see major national newsrooms change and people were losing jobs. But you've been able to hold Orange County sacred in the print space. What do you think is the future for print in Orange County? Is there a place for glossy?
I think there is. First, magazines are a completely different experience. But just like newspapers and all print media, you have to evolve. And so you also have to have a digital presence. But by and large, for magazines, people are reading it at their leisure. They're not necessarily looking at magazines for news. You don't need it. You don't need it for news. And so I think in that respect, people like to take a magazine out by the pool or read one, on the plane. Especially now that so many airlines have discontinued their onboard magazines. But I do see people reading magazines on airplanes. So I do think that there is a thirst for that. There's a tactile satisfaction to flipping through a magazine and seeing the pictures on paper, in print. It's a very different experience than flipping through your phone or your tablet. It's just a different sort of experience. The challenge is finding the kind of content that is going to captivate the reader. But that's an age-old challenge, whether even before, the internet became so widely used. I don't think print is dead. I think, though, that it's necessary for all outlets, whether it's a newspaper outlet or a magazine outlet, to continue to engage with readers, find out what they want, and find out and learn how to do the content to produce. Be sure to produce the content that the readers want. The deeper dives, the stories that you don't hear. Local news. You're not going to hear local news on television and on radio necessarily. So that's where, the print media can really find a home, find a place, and continue to thrive.
Well, and Orange Coast magazine has always been the better quality, longer form stories, the deeper dives into what makes our county great. You also are kind of the gold standard on best restaurants to go to, all the different food specialties and trends that are happening, best places to go. But you have taken deeper dives into social issues over the years. I remember Marty kind of really introduced some of these bigger, very complex topics, and he always approached it from a very unique way, very thoughtful way. His writers would do a lot of deep background, which we would help, provide background on. And then we'd see the story come out like a year later, and that's how thoughtful, because everyone was covering it in the immediate news, but Marty wanted to cover it deeper. And then Alan continued that tradition. We've talked about it. What are some of the stories you're interested in talking about in the magazine?
Yeah, I think that, in recent years, and I'm not quite sure why, those longer form stories kind of tapered off. They kind of fell by the wayside. And I am really, I love those stories. I love the crazy kind of true crime, bizarro stories, the stories that are a reflection of what's going on in our culture in terms of social issues. Those are always really interesting reads. Sometimes they're fun reads. Sometimes it's truth is crazier than fiction. And I do want to bring those back this next year. So I'll be talking to you
because I have the crazy bizarro stories. Apparently, no, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, that's one thing that I think has kind of taken a back seat at Orange Coast that I do want to bring back. Marty was great at finding those stories to tell, because it can be a challenge. You can tell the story, but to tell the story in a way that, in a light that hasn't been seen before, is the key.
So we've seen a lot of shifts. If I look at the glossy landscape of Orange County, we've seen a lot of shifts in some of our trusted editorial-based magazines turning to maybe a little out of balance pay-to-play content and custom content. I know we call it pay-to-play in PR, but I know publishers like to call it custom content. But at the end of the day, it's people paying to appear like they're getting written about from an editorial perspective. And it's a little mix. But at the end of the day, it's a little disingenuous to the reader. And we've watched Locale completely go that route, and we've seen a lot of the pages in Modern Luxury getting eaten up that way, or templated from a national perspective with very little local value. How are you guarding against that?
It's a challenge because money speaks,
right?
And especially when you have a new owner who has expectations. They bought these magazines with the expectation that these magazines are going to turn a profit, and they want to see that profit. It's understandable, So it is a constant challenge. There is no doubt, and this is the case across the board, there is no longer, if a print outlet is going to be successful, you can no longer have that brick wall between editorial and advertising. There has to be some collaboration. Content has to make sense, and you have to stay true to the editorial mission and your, pledge as a journalist to be, to tell true stories, unbiased, of interest to the reader, stories that make sense for your audience and for your brand. But by the same token, if you've got a client, an advertiser who's got a great story to tell, why not tell it? Why not tell it? Why punish advertisers because they're buying into the magazine, and ignore their stories because, we can't, they're an advertiser, you know. The challenge, though, is making sure that, and this is a huge challenge, is making sure that those clients know if you're telling a story about them, you have journalistic control, you know. But at the same token, for us, newspapers is a different thing. You know, you might find yourself, you might have a client who has, you know, shown some indiscretions, let's say, and they make the news, and, you know, you got to cover the good and the bad, right? It's different with newspapers, so that line is a little bit more important. With magazines, you know, many magazines that I have worked for aren't hard news oriented. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, you know, like with restaurants. So you go to a new restaurant, you have a bad experience. They're a new restaurant. Do you really need to say that it was a bad experience? Maybe they're having an off day. Maybe they're still, you know, working out their kinks. So, you know, you don't have to, you have a little bit more discretion editorially.
But you're not going to write about a restaurant just because they bought an ad.
Oh, gosh, no.
Right.
No.
And you don't do reviews very much anymore, right?
We do monthly.
You do?
Yeah,
okay.
we do monthly.
So, but are you doing bad reviews, or are you only putting in good reviews?
If I have a bad experience, or if it's a restaurant that just doesn't, if I would not want my readers to go there, I just won't write about it.
Yeah.
But at the same token, you know, why ruin somebody's business because you had a bad experience?
Right. Gone are the days.
Just don't write about it.
Yeah, gone are the days of those cutthroat reviews, right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe in newspapers it's different.
Yeah.
It just seems like an unnecessary meanness.
Yeah.
You know, people, you know, I'd much rather recommend a place to go than to say, don't go here, it's terrible.
Right. Okay, so let's talk some food. If you and Artie, your wonderful husband, who, by the way, is always at fun events with her, and he's a good time, right?
Artie, the one-man party.
He is. He's so much fun. I've never heard you say that. That's actually really funny. That is really funny. I'm never going to get that out of my head next time I see him. But if you guys were going to dinner tonight, what's the choice?
Well, it depends. So Knife Pleat had been around for years before I finally got to go there. We went there for lunch, yes. And I did their new vegetarian tasting menu back in July. It's like you walk in and the heavens open and the angels sing. I mean, it is just the best dining experience, the care that they put into every course. They're just such, Yasmin and Tony are just such, a culinary powerhouse. They really know dining and hospitality, and it truly is a Michelin star experience. That is probably tops on my list. Fun place with great food, Webb's Grainworks down on Aliso, Viejo.
What's it called?
Webb's Grainworks.
Are you guys all taking notes? Because this is like inside info.
If you haven't been there, you got to make a trip down there. It is the funnest place. They have a distillery. They distill their own spirits there, and it's this wonderful space in like this industrial park.
And Aliso Viejo Industrial Park. Yeah. Okay, I thought it was just houses for miles.
No, there's this industrial pocket there, right off the freeway, not far off the freeway, and the distillery part is just separated just with glass, and you walk in, and there is a real Model T hanging from the ceiling.
Wow.
It is the coolest place, and the food is really good. Food is like. It's tavern food, but it's got this really fun sort of Asian infusion to it. The owner and founder, Jeremy Webb, he spent a lot of time growing up he spent a lot of time in Asia, and he loves the cuisine there. So he's kind of created this menu of great food and tavern fare that's got these Asian elements to it. It's really great food, really fun place to go, full of eye candy.
Ooh.
That's a really
fun.
Yeah, that's another one of my favorites.
So what's going on down in Dana Point? It feels like there's a lot.
There is a
on.
lot, and I can't wait to see how that all pans out. I'm going to be taking a look at that in the next week or two. But yeah, big revitalization, much needed down in Dana Point, and they've got that whole great harbor area that the marina and the harbor area that really needed a facelift and needed some infusion, and so I'm excited about that. And then also River Street Marketplace down in San Juan Capistrano.
Okay, I've been hearing about this.
Yeah,
okay,
that's going to be a really fun place. Restaurants, shops. It's going to be there's a great meat shop that's going in there.
I can tell where everyone lives. North County, we don't hear much.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
So, there is, have you guys ever heard of the Blind Rabbit?
Yes.
Okay. So there's one down in Rancho Santa Margarita. There was one in Yorba Linda, and they closed that and reopened with a new concept as Blind Coyote, and I can't wait to go there. I want to go in there. I don't make it to Yorba Linda all that much, It's pretty far. But Zove's is great up in Tustin.
I love Zove's.
I just had a luncheon there on Sunday, and that the food is great and the restaurant is so lovely. And Zove just took over a venue in Anaheim, so they're going to be doing a lot of events. They have an event space that they can cater for, and it's like for real events, like hundreds. It's got
wonderful! Well, she's iconic too.
She's iconic,
so.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm a Costa Mesa person, and we get a lot of cool things happening here. But Huntington has started to try to make a name for itself in the culinary scene.
Yeah, it has.
And you're an HB resident.
I am. I live in Huntington Beach. I have my favorites. I love it's kind of a neighborhood joint, but I love the food there, Red Table.
Oh, yeah.
It's
great.
It's kind of near the harbor. Just about a block up PCH from Warner Avenue. And I love that little restaurant. They've got just a great flat iron steak. It's so good.
You know who told me about that restaurant years ago was Kedrick Francis.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm glad to hear they're still in business.
They're still in business, still really, really great. I love what Alicia has done all along the boardwalk in Huntington Beach.
Yes.
Alicia Cox is just another visionary. And, I've lived in Huntington Beach for a really long time, and all those concessions all up and down the beach, they were just blighted. I mean, they were, and they served
bike rentals or something.
Bike rentals, hot dogs, just wasted space, really. And she's turned them into these wonderful venues with live entertainment and SeaLegs on the beach, which is closest to where I live. That packs. I mean,
it's like a day club with music.
It really is. So much so that people are, on the beach, all around, just packed on the beach, facing SeaLegs so that they could hear the music and going in and out and, buying food. And it's just a great metamorphosis that she's made happen.
Well, and you've always been a champion of her, and
I think she's brilliant.
Yeah, and we don't really do restaurant PR, but I remember she was 1 year in business, I was 1 year in business, and we got introduced by a mutual friend, and she said, "Well, will you have a meeting with me?" I said, "Yeah, but I don't do restaurants." And she said, "Just meet with me still." So I met with her because we were both entrepreneurs, and she's like, "Look, I don't want you to do my restaurant PR. Like, you don't have to worry about crazy chefs and all those things. I'm going to build an empire, and I want you to work with me." And, I said, we're in it together. Let's do it. And we've been able to watch our babies grow and our businesses grow. And I was super proud of her last month, or 2 weeks ago. She won Women of Business.
Yeah.
For Orange County Business Journal. And I'm just so proud of her for everything she's accomplished.
It's very well deserved, too, because she really has built an empire. I remember having a conversation with her, too, long time ago. It was when she still had the brick and mortar.
Yeah.
And she had all these ideas that, we were talking about. And I said, how do you do it? She goes, you know what? It's like taking a big pot of spaghetti noodles, throwing them against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yep.
You know, but all of those noodles, they're all really great ideas because they've all come to fruition. And the brick and mortars have gone away, except for at the airport. The airport is still there, right?
Yeah, she still's in LAX Terminal 2. Really great little place to get a
pretty,
drink.
too.
Yeah,
It's
it's
really
very
pretty.
pretty. Yeah, so she still has that franchise. And then, she just posted yesterday. I'm going to give her a quick shout out. She just launched her first cookbook called California Fork and Spoon.
I can't wait to get that.
And it's all of the recipes that she used to serve from a restaurant. So I was telling Tina earlier, I'm like, do you remember the crab fried quinoa rice and the stinky fries and all of the classic poke nachos, the things that she just fed Huntington Coast over the last decade. And so you can get that now on pre-release. But she's
that's
doing
so
great.
exciting.
I'm
She's
excited.
she's always up to something. I feel
Always.
like.
But that's how we spent a lot of our time, was eating a lot of her food.
Yeah.
So when you think about what makes Orange County great, what are some of the things that come to mind? Because you get to tell a lot of the fun, good stories.
Well, I think one of the biggest things that has happened over decades is Orange County's dining scene. I mean, we've got a great dining scene throughout the county. In fact, I worked out of our LA office because our sister magazines are Los Angeles Magazine and Pasadena Magazine. I worked out of our LA office on Friday. I can't remember who it was, but somebody from the team was saying, yeah, Orange County has great restaurants. And we do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of become our entertainment. You know, we don't have a downtown area, although that there is a goal of changing that, but we don't really have like a downtown LA area. But dining has become what we do. You know, it's our nightlife, it's our, social exchange, it's at the core of what we do socially here. And so that has been something that I think has been really, really remarkable. When I've gone through the years, I've gone back and looked at like the very first issues of Orange Coast Magazine, way back when it was called Newport for like a nanosecond. NIEPORT, Newport.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, it had to be different.
So highbrow.
Newport.
That's so funny.
And I remember for the 30th anniversary, I had a long, great phone conversation with Robert Guccione, who was one of, the Guccione brothers, one of the Guccione boys from Penthouse. He actually founded Orange Coast Magazine, Newport as it was. And I remember talking to him. It's like, why, what made you decide to do this? He goes, you know what? There was nothing in Orange County. I lived in Newport. I loved living in Newport. I had a lot of my celebrity friends living in Newport, but there was nothing here. And I thought it would be fun to have a magazine, put celebrities on the cover and kind of maybe see if we could put Orange County on the map. There was like the Balboa Bay Club. There were like a few restaurants that people went to. There was
Villanova.
I
mean, we're talking
yes.
John Wayne, like made us famous,
yes,
right? Okay.
Right. And I think the Ritz might have been around
the Ritz
in
was
the 70s.
down on, Oh, no, that was up by Fashion Island.
It was up by Fashion
we're
Island.
going old school
Yeah.
Orange County right here,
Yeah.
Chris. You remember this?
So, there wasn't really a lot here.
Was the Quiet Woman here?
Was Quiet Woman's been around a long
know.
time. It's been around a very long time. So it's interesting to see, even though like we do have great industry. We've got an amazing tech community here. We've got, captains of industry here. So when you look at how we've grown in a relatively short period of time, from the 1970s being just known for Disneyland and a few great restaurants and Newport Beach, to, being really a place where incredible companies like Blizzard and
Vizio,
right.
Edwards Life Science,
Edwards Life
Johnson
Science,
Johnson.
really powerful companies are based. It's really fun to see the evolution of it.
What about the arts?
Oh, the arts. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, what the Segerstrom Center has done is just amazing. This year they celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Candlelight Concert. 50 years ago, a group of women wanted to build an art center in Orange County, a place where the community could watch plays, hear musical performances, and they held their first fundraiser in an empty 5 and dime store that didn't have power, so they lit it with candles, and they brought in entertainment. I think it might have been a piano player or something, but they brought in some type of live entertainment, and they called it the Candlelight Concert. And that was 50 years ago. And now this is the event of all events in Orange County. And this year, they always have it the first Friday in December, and it's celebrating 50 years. But it's grown, and it's become a huge fundraiser for Segerstrom Center. And that was back in the day when there was nothing, and they were able to partner with Henry Segerstrom, who donated the land, who spearheaded a lot of the fundraising efforts, and he really did so much, obviously. And now it's really, truly is a world-class campus.
Well, and they invested in great architecture. I mean, that Performing Arts Center is just stunning. I feel like I've traveled the world, and my career. I've been in so many different major metropolitan cities, and when I walk that area, I just feel like I'm in a big city.
Yeah.
Like, this is Orange County's big city moment.
Right.
And I think it's because the Segerstroms made sure that great architecture was there, that they invested in design.
Yes, it's a beautiful place, and there's something for everybody. With the Juliana George Argyros Plaza, there's a lot of free community arts programming. There's the Orange County Museum of Art there now.
I love that,
and the concert hall is absolutely gorgeous. And then, of course, the main building, the Segerstrom original building. It's just a beautiful campus. It really is.
And we have the Pacific Symphony. I have to give them a shout out. We have the Pacific Symphony here, who just named their new music director, first time in 35 years.
So exciting.
So, yes.
The next chapter.
Yes, it's exciting. There's a lot going on. South Coast Rep is there. But of course, that brings us to shopping. South Coast Plaza, iconic. Yeah. What's going on in the fashion scene here and the shopping scene here? Are you seeing businesses revive since COVID? Yeah. Are we seeing the rise of, boutiques and, what are we seeing?
I think yes, and that's really fun. Like, Lido Village, there's a lot of great little shops around Lido, because for a while there, that was just...
Oh my gosh, it was the buzz. Do you remember when I was in college, it was the buzz down there, that club.
Oh, yeah. And then, I remember when I first got to Riviera magazine, a lot of the shops had closed down. Yeah. There were a lot of empty storefronts. And now you go down there and, it is a place to be. And there's a lot of great little cool shops. It's really fun to see these little boutiques popping up again. South Coast Plaza continues to be... South Coast Plaza and Fashion Island continue to be renowned shopping centers. I have family, it's my husband's family in Norway. We've had cousins come out to visit. They want to go to South Coast Plaza.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And spend the entire day there.
Yeah. That's great.
And they do.
So the thing that I love about what Orange Coast Magazine does is that, yes, I always look up, okay, where should I go? My favorite restaurant was your favorite restaurant on the cover a couple of years ago, the Butcher's House. And I'm taking, actually, my daughter turned 13 this morning. And I know you remember when I was pregnant, and I still can't even believe she's 13, but I asked her, where do you want to go? She said the Butcher's House was the best restaurant 2 years ago with your publication. Great steak, French, everything. I always would ask Alan, where should I go? And she'd tell me, or I'd look it up. You guys always know and have your pulse on what's great. You always know what's happening in the art scene. You've always invested in that. You talk about some of the important things that are going on in our community. But one of the things I really appreciate you do is you highlight the people that really make this county vibrant. So can you take us through some of the things that you're doing this year with your kind of spotlight stories and how you're highlighting? And I did hear everyone in the room, they're changing the name back to Kick-Ass Women. Right.
I don't know. Well, I do know why it was changed. There was a feeling among part of the staff that it was a little too brash, that maybe it was a little off-putting, a little too, but I see nothing offensive about it, know. And I got so much feedback. It's like, why did you change it? It's like, I agree. I think we should change it back. And so I said, we're changing it back.
Yay.
Are you sure?
Like,
it's like,
we're going to break that news today.
Yeah. So it is once again Kick-Ass Women.
Here we go.
Yes.
In March, April?
In March.
Wonderful. Women's International Month. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do more than just that episode.
We try to highlight. Yeah. We try to highlight not just power players and movers and shakers, but people who are even just, enriching the lives of their community or their industry. Maybe not in a big way, maybe it's in a little way, through various profiles. We have people profiles in every issue. We've got a culture profile, we've got a person of interest profile, in addition to the few issues that we do where we will highlight a series of people. Our best doctors list is coming out. Our new best doctors list that we partner with the Orange County Medical Association with. That's going to be coming out in January. Our Kick-Ass Women will be out. And then on the sales side, they also do their own recognition lists on the sales side. So we continue to do that, and it's always fun to it's always fun to highlight people, especially if they're not like widely known. Mm-hmm. Number one, they feel honored. And number two, it's nice to shine a light on the good things that people are doing. Right. Whether it's therapeutic art classes, somebody that you maybe haven't heard of before, but doing really great work with kids who have gone through trauma and they can express their feelings and begin to heal through art. Those are all really great stories to tell. And we like to think, or I like to think, that we're kind of maybe passing along a little bit of good along the way.
Yeah. Well, you are. So we actually have the opportunity to open up for questions, and I think that there's a microphone that's floating around. If you could kindly just say your name and maybe the company that you represent before you ask your question, but we'd love to give the audience a chance to ask a question. I know many people in this room. I knew Jenny was going to ask because she's known you for years.
Thanks for sharing. I just have a simple question. With you moving back to Orange Coast and our team, sorry, I'm with Reveille. I'm Jenny. Sorry, I meant to say that. We're all over you. We're like, okay, Tina's back.
And I love it.
Good. And so I just want to know how you organize your emails.
Oh.
And a lot of people tell me, I look at everything, which it's hard to believe. But, I sometimes think, she knows my name, so she's going to see that pop out.
That's true. That's true.
But I'm just curious how you keep track, because every time we talk to you, you say, just send it to me. And I'm like, I don't want to bombard you, but we want to get a story through or get a pitch in.
So I have a system. I have developed a system. And so I might not read the email thoroughly, but I will look at it. And like if I see that, for example, if there's maybe somebody who I think might be a good kick-ass woman, I have files for every single month of the year. And I will either download it, copy and paste it into a Word document, or make some kind of a note in my kick-ass women candidates running list, and I will immediately put that into whatever file I think is a good fit. So I might not read the email right away, and a lot of times what happens, people will send me an email, like they'll send me an email today, and I'm thinking, oh, this would be great for our July best of issue. Mm-hmm. And so months are going to go by, and they don't even know if I've read it. But when I start planning that issue, it's like, oh, I want to include this. I think this would be good for this. And then we circle back.
Yeah, long lead is still long lead, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's great. Go ahead, Paulina.
Hi, my name is Paulina. I'm with Reveille as well. So nice to meet you, and thank you for taking the time to speak here today. My question for both of you is, what do you think defines a kick-ass woman, as you said, and what advice would you give to future kick-ass women? What do you want to see the next generation do?
For me, leadership is a big thing. Leadership and change. You know, how they've influenced either their industry or, you know, taken over a post that had been occupied by another person for a very long time and overcome the challenge of making a mark, picking up where they left off and continuing momentum. But leadership is a big thing. It's a big thing that I look for.
All right. Well, Tina, I always love to end our time on a question about the future. Mm-hmm. What's your hope for Orange County in the days and years ahead? And what role do you think you can play in that?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. What role could I play? I'll only leave Orange Coast if they kick me out. I mean, seriously. I mean, I love the magazine, and I hope that Orange Coast can, you know, Orange Coast, I think, set out to be a magazine that was a reflection of the larger community. And I hope it continues to do that. Where I hope that Orange County continues to evolve. I think it's a special place where we don't have to worry about the things that a lot of urban areas have to worry about. I mean, we have our problems, just like every community does. But I think we're pretty lucky, and we've got such wonderful natural resources. And I would love to see the community continue, Orange County continue to evolve, take care of the precious natural resources that we do have while we continue to nurture business and industry so that we can continue to thrive. And also, you know, Orange County is an incredibly charitable, philanthropically minded region, and I hope that that can continue to grow too. You know, we have some really wonderful people who give. I'm always impressed at how people are so willing to give, and I hope that that continues. And you have to, in order to have that, you have to have the industry, and you have to have the people who, you know, can bring their companies here and make money so that they can give back to the community. I just hope that that continues to happen here.
And what do you want to do with all of that?
You know, I'd love to think that I play a role in it somehow by being the communicator and the storyteller. That's a really good question to pose because I've never given it any thought. You know, I know that there is a responsibility that comes with being a communicator, you know, a storyteller. You know, if people are listening to you, you have to make sure that you're telling the truth. So I think that that is probably my challenge, and to figure out how to play a part in the future of the region. I've never really given that any thought. That's great food for thought.
Well, you do it already by supporting small business, local business, the arts that enrich our lives, the awesome food, and the enjoyment that we get
stuff.
It is, and it's more than that. You do a lot of good. You do a lot of good in highlighting a lot of things. And so we're excited that Orange Coast is in your hands and that we get an opportunity to still have a great magazine here that we can read on the airplane, but actually hopefully all of you are subscribers. We're big fans of making sure you're subscribing to your local media. Without local media, we just don't get the content, the stories. So go home today, make sure you subscribe, and get that magazine delivered to your home or your office. So thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
Loved having you today. All right.